We are back. Welcome to Close of Business Live. I'm RC.
And I'm Juliana.
This is like our consciousness, right? So guys, if you're new to Close of Business, first, welcome. Today is Monday, March 17th. It is Mama Bear's birthday edition. You want to share the last 3 days, what the soup du jour has been?
So been really enjoying lox and bagels, which is like my favorite, and my grandson for a few days,
Yes.
and country fried steak, which is also my favorite, which is a total cheat in my world. But that's okay. And just having a really good time, just hanging out with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you did it exquisitely, by the
Thank
way.
you.
The enjoying the Aiden thing and the chicken fried steak and the lox and everything. You did it wonderfully.
It was just kind of, doing our thing, right?
Yeah. Well, and I got a chance to meet Stephanie.
Oh, that's right. So my girlfriend Stephanie came
Yeah.
over on Saturday, and that was a lot of fun. I call her my Jew. She's like, what, 4'9"? Maybe. She's really tiny, but she's your very typical New York Jew. Like I sent her a voicemail, and I was like, oh, we're gonna do bagels and lox. I was just having this like massive crazy craving for bagels and lox. And she had to call me. She's like, I just have to call you. Like, you just warmed my heart. Like, we're gonna have bagels and lox. Oh my God, I'm like so excited about that. I was like, all right, I forgot you're Jewish.
So when 6'2" hugs 4'9",
Oh, that was pretty funny.
there's an air gap that happens that you have to tread. You're never quite sure how to.
She was like, I didn't expect your husband to be so big. It was pretty funny. She's like, Dad.
Hey, it was great though.
Yeah.
She's a lot of fun.
She was a lot of fun.
She is funny.
Yeah, I was like straight back to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Hanging out with people, like the accent and how she just was and her attitude. And like she gave me attitude. It was like, well, I'm asking you questions. Like, I want to understand this Watchmen action. What you're doing and why you're doing it. Like, show me the workbook. I want to understand. Like, you need to explain this to me. I was like, all right. I was like, it's like your version of when you have a new technology and you're like, you tell people just break it. Break it. And I'm like, go ahead. I'm like, go ahead. I was like, go ahead, chicken chest me and everything. I was like,
I did get to make her a coffee.
You did make her a coffee.
A coffee. Just
coffee.
Very particular with the dialect. Coffee.
It's coffee.
Coffee.
That's right.
Okay.
It was so much fun. It was like a throwback to being home. It was great having Stephanie over.
That's awesome.
I'm not allowed to call her Stephanie. She's like when I call her Stephanie. She just, I don't know, Steffi. Oh, she's Aunt Steffi. It's to Aiden. She was like talking to Aiden. She was like, next time I see you, we're gonna go to the park and stuff like that. I'm like, yes, Miss Stephanie. And she goes, no, I am Aunt Steffi. And I was like, okay, Aunt Steffi.
I wouldn't be surprised if Steph ended up in the comments tonight because it's open lines edition of Close the Business. So if you have questions, you can pop them in the chat. By the way, yeah. Well, I mean, we are live. You can just text them.
She laughed at it.
Yeah. So if it's your first time, welcome to Close the Business. Now, you may know us from Sherlock Market Research or Watchmen Action. However you found us, welcome. We decided to start Close the Business because Juliana and I, at the end of every day, we get together and just do a brain dump. What did I learn today? It's like the primary, right? So what happens is we start talking and we get on a train and all these wonderful things come and you always say the same thing.
I always go, I cannot believe this is amazing content. We need to be sharing this content, because it's one thing when you see RC and I and we're processing information, right? It's really amazing. Like when we start making connections and you can't duplicate that in a conversation. Like we can't come back to you and go, oh my God, we had this amazing conversation and try to be able to record it.
Right.
So we just need to it's like when Father gives you a word, you don't release that word until it's the right time. If you release it, it's done. You've already released it. So when you and I have conversation, I feel like that we're releasing a lot of revelation of what Father's telling us and, revealing to us that we need to know so that we know how to move forward. so I really enjoy having these conversations with you. You know,
we basically invite you into our evening
Yeah.
conversations, our stream of consciousness, if you will, about what we learned today, or as you see in the title, what's happening and what's going on.
Yep.
Is the theme. So we talked about the birthday.
Yeah.
Congratulations on being 25. I just well, our birthdays are close. So yours is today, mine is the 28th.
So we always celebrate March. March is
Yeah.
like a big deal for RC and I because, you know, it's our birthday month.
Mhm.
And even though I'm a Piscean and you're in Aries, which, you know, my Christian friends are like, don't even think about that kind of stuff, doesn't change the fact that we're so different, but yes, so amazingly compatible.
Right. It's the complementary, right, of the two. And so, you know, I seem to get older and you don't. And that's a beautiful thing, right? Because I'm complimented on they're like, they're like, you know, you lucky, or as you say, you lucky mofo. And I'm like, I know.
I just happen to be one of those
Kinda.
people that, you know, you can see this in men especially, is like, you know, when they're younger, they're like, and then when they get older, it's like, wow, you know, you've become really handsome. I'm one of those people, maybe because I look like my father and my grandfather. That, you know, the older I get, the more I feel like, all right, well, so thank you for the compliment. You know, thank you. That's kind of
Good,
weird.
man. Hey, no, you look. I mean, you
Trying.
do. You wear it well, man.
Look at these wrinkles. I'm like, what?
Nobody can
I just is rude.
Nobody can see.
No, they can't see it, but I can see it in the mirror. But that's okay.
It is funny when we're out sometimes, though. People don't realize our ages. They're like,
But it's so funny when I met RC, my dad was like, all right, I know you're robbing the cradle. How old is he? And I was like, Dad, really? Like, I was like, he's only 3 years younger than me. It's so funny. He's like, I know you're robbing the cradle.
I feel like, Aiden, what happened? What happened? Wow. So
I've been disconnected from the world, so I don't know what's going on. Can you tell me what's going on?
You know-
I'm talking to a 2-year-old all since yesterday at 3:00 when Alex and Amber dropped them off. So I'm like really excited about having like an intellectual adult conversation. This is great.
well, it's going to take a minute because we've been talking 2-year-old for the last 24 hours.
Yes.
So, you know, we were off last week. So we had the stretch, right? We did the training in Southwest Florida. By the way, if you are in Venice, Sarasota, or the surrounding area, the Watchman Action training will be back on Friday, March 28th.
His birthday.
That happens to be my birthday. No better way to celebrate your birthday than to serve. Yes. So we'll be at the We the People Clinic. You'll find the information at watchmanaction.org. $25 includes dinner, includes your workbook, fellowship, and training time with us. We're going to equip you to engage the culture and be the advocate that you need to be on the issues that matter to you most.
And most importantly, is you plus a group of people.
Yes.
So it's not just you, like we're equipping you to learn what it means to be able to recruit and do what you need to do so that you have a team of people to do the things that we are all capable of doing if we had the right people sitting at the table helping us do those things.
You plus.
I love that.
That's it. You plus. So yeah, the training's coming up again, and we've been busy. There's been client work and stuff like that, and we'll talk a little bit about Sherlock because we don't do that a whole lot.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that here in a bit. But we are on the road again tomorrow morning.
So excited!
Atlanta.
Yay.
We are coming to you. Gainesville
specifically.
Gainesville specifically. We will be northeast of Atlanta in the beautiful city of Gainesville. Turning Point Faith is doing a pastors conference, and they got it action packed. Like Charlie Kirk's going to be there. Our friend Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, so he and his wife Molly will be there. They've got an action packed lineup. I did see this afternoon that Ben Carson is supposed to be there.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so they're just bringing everybody together. You know, it's an event when you get your tickets and everything, and they tell you, hey, this and hey, that. And then you get the email up close to the event that says, hey, there's going to be a little security check and everything like that.
It's like, that's okay.
That's okay. But the last time this happened, there were some pretty huge names that showed up. So who knows who's actually going to show up?
Who knows?
You never know who might get on a plane and come. But
Air Force One and come.
Potentially, just saying, no confirmations, anything like that. But we will be there. Watchman Action is going to be on the scene at this thing. So we're going to get as many interviews as possible, as many of you know, but in case you don't, we also co-host the Culture Crossroads every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Beck TV network. So if you go to BEK.news, you can see the show. That's a homegrown. We reach, I think, over 10,000 homes a week now with that show, just on TV. In the Dakotas and Western Minnesota, and then everybody that streams. So our goal for this week is to get as many interviews for you as possible.
Yep.
So you can see what's happening and what's going on with some of your favorite people in faith.
Right.
And then to just connect as many dots as possible. This is gonna be a great trip.
Right. And so for those of you that don't know how we know Pastor Lorenzo Sewell.
Oh, please tell the story.
And his wife Molly. So we were at what event?
We were at the Believer Summit. Turning Point Faith did the Believer Summit last summer in West Palm Beach.
Awesome.
Yes.
So I listen to Father. Like my ear is always open to what it is that he's telling me. We were sitting in the car and I was like, oh, and Father's telling me, take your Bible. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to carry the Bible on. But you know what? I obey and I did what I was supposed to do. So you were in the VIP room and eating and hanging out and whatever. And I was just, looking and walking the floor. And I just happened to be at the booth when Pastor Lorenzo's right-hand person, Wendy, ran up to the booth and was like, help, does anybody have a Bible? We need a Bible. And I was just happened to be standing there. And I was like, oh, I have a Bible. And she was like, oh, can we borrow it? She goes, we can't find somebody who has the Bible. I'm like, absolutely, it's in the room. And I'm really glad that I listened to Father because obviously, Pastor Lorenzo needed it. So, Father has a way of when you're in his will, doing what he wants you to do, and you're following in his footsteps, right? He makes the path so straight. Like, who would have known that after all of this, that Pastor Lorenzo would have become like this big deal, right? That people are talking about him and he's being invited.
It was interesting, Juliana. I had to do this justice because this story is so good that let me do this real quick. I just wanted to share with everybody. So this was the August 3rd edition of We Are the Watchmen Weekly last year, where we actually talked about what happened. So there we are, the Culture Crossroads. Boy, I look like a lung in that. Oh boy. RC, fix your face, as Les Brown would say. What's wrong with your face? Okay.
Put a smile on your face.
Yeah, right. So there's everything. We talked about who was there. It was a great lineup. But the real story of the story, I have a Bible. Right. So it was so great for us to actually be able to share this story with everybody. There we are with Pastor Sewell.
And this is the day. This is the day after we ran into them. I'm like, dude, I have to have a picture with you now. You got on stage with my little Bible. So it was beautiful.
Yeah. And so at this point, Pastor Sewell and Molly had hosted Donald Trump and some others at a pastor's roundtable in Detroit. Pastor Sewell, 180 Church, they're doing a lot of great work up there. And his story, he's got an amazing testimony. What was very interesting, because we took the picture and everything, right? And then we got his speech, but you also had an opportunity to sit with him
and interview him.
And when you meet people who are down to earth, and like it's the same person off stage as it is on stage.
That was him.
I will say this about Lorenzo and Molly. They are the exact same people that you see.
Yeah. I love Molly. She's such a cool chick. Like the videos that she does and the pictures that she takes and how she just her persona and how she comes across is just so fun and loving. Like, it's just awesome.
Yeah. I'll be actually, Matt Staver's Liberty Council is doing their gala at the beginning of April. So Pastor Sewell will be doing the invocation here in Orlando.
That's right.
On April the 5th. That's a great event that's coming up. So I wanted to share that because it's so much fun.
Well, I love that the title of the article is about God's Father's love language is obedience.
Up there. Yes, it is.
Father's love language is absolutely 150% obedience. Right? Because if you understand that his word is true and that he's speaking to you all the time and he's always guiding you, because he says, to pray unceasingly. Praying, they made this thing like you're supposed to go like, our Father who art in heaven. No, praying really means, Father, okay, I'm listening. What do you need me to do? Who do you need me to call? What am I supposed to do at this moment? Like, who am I supposed to speak to? That's what real obedience is about. It's not about just being just dedicated to the Bible, but being dedicated to having a relationship with Father so that he can guide you and speak to you like all day long.
You are in alignment and you allow him to guide you. This whole weekend was amazing for us. We made connections. We had a great conversation with Lucas Miles, who is now running Turning Point Faith. And it was so great to see those things manifest, being present, and then you being obedient and bringing your Bible. And when you watch Pastor Sewell's thing, you see he's got your Bible right there. And it so happens to be the Geneva Bible and the Patriots edition.
So I had the most amazing conversation today that I need to tell you about.
Please let me stop sharing the screen here. Well, we can bring the big board back later if we need. Hello.
So I didn't tell you
what happened.
This is why I love Close the Business, right? Because you get to see me telling RC about something that happened to me today that he doesn't know about, right?
It's true.
Okay, so I got a phone call from a friend of ours, and she was like, "Juliana, I am so proud of you guys." She goes, "Happy birthday!" First she sang, right, and then she was like, "I'm so proud of you guys. Like you said you were going to do something, and you followed through, and you did that something. I see you all over the place." She goes, "I don't have the time to watch everything that you're doing and whatnot, but I know what you're doing."
Yeah.
And it was so heartwarming. And she said to me, she goes, "Juliana, watching you walk out, I have goosebumps from head to toe. Watching you walk out what Father has you doing and seeing your obedience in him and seeing how he's blessing you and how he's making your path straight." Like I would be like, for years, I'd be like, "Father, I have no idea. I have no idea how you're make me do these things. I don't even know exactly what you want me to do." Right. But just what like people outside of us, like you always say, the streets be watching. Yeah, the streets be watching. They're watching us walk out in obedience, doing what Father needs to do, seeing the blessings and all the things that we've been creating. Like that to me is everything. Like that, you could not have given me, my girlfriend, and she knows who she is. She could never have given me a greater compliment than saying to me, "It's a blessing to watch how Father is blessing you and walking you through what he needs you to do."
So this is a lesson not only for us, right? So you're seeing our stream of consciousness right now. And we often remind ourselves of these things because Father has people put in place to remind us of these things. But this is also a lesson if you're watching this. If you're doing something and you feel like no one's paying attention or nothing's moving or nothing's working, that is the moment where everything is about to break for you. And you don't realize it. It's not about likes and all of this other stuff. Yeah, that matters. Sure, whatever. What it's about is you obeying. His love language is obedience. When you never know, right? And you could have 10,000 people watch you and none of them be relevant to what Father, the mission that he has you on. Or you could have 10 people watching and they are all super relevant to the mission and can move you forward.
Yep. You never know why. Every time I meet somebody new, I always go, "I wonder what Father has for this relationship. Like, what does he bring there? Am I learning something? Am I helping that person? Is that person helping me? Like, do I need to learn discernment and have wisdom? So like, he's making me like, look at this person and have to understand that he's teaching me something through this person."
Right.
Like, every moment being in just submission to what it is that he has you doing.
Right. And it's because we're in a season of revelation.
No doubt about that.
I've encountered so many people, whether it be through posts or conversations or whatever, that say things feel so different than they've ever felt in their lives. They're not sure if they're in the matrix or what's going on and things. It's like, wow, I just can't believe that people are actually doing this. And as a believer, it's in the book.
Well, I think there's a lot of convergence of stuff that's happening, and people are all trying to decipher like what's true, what's not true, what the path is, what do I believe? For example, I keep saying that, Trump is standing in the middle between us, the people, and they, the globalists, right? We're in that moment of convergence. Like, what's going to happen? Are we going to say come in this direction. It's we the people, or we're going to let him go in that direction. And it's right.
Exactly.
So, I mean, what are we going to do at the crossroads that we're in right now?
If you have wondered when your time was going to be, because you've got the right message, you know you've got the right message, you speak to people, the doors seem closed or whatever, this is your part of the story, by the way. You're going to need to kick that door in.
Right.
Okay. You're going to need to be bold and to kick that door in and stop asking for permission. You'd rather ask for forgiveness anyway. And for people who know us, and if you don't know us, it's great to meet you. We've been known to do that.
Well, that's why people, the watchmen are standing up. We're all saying the same thing, which is you have to stand up.
Right.
And at the sounds of my voice, the minute that you hear me say something, you are obligated to go out there and go tell your brothers and sisters. Like, I don't play with that. Like, I'm telling you something's going on. I'm telling you to go look at what we've been writing about. I'm telling you that we've been predicting things for the last 2 years. If you don't heed our warning, I am clear. I can go home and go, Father, I told them because you told me to tell them. Mm-hmm. But it's your now responsibility at the sound of our voice that you are now going to warn your brothers and sisters. That's why RC and I take the time that we do to tell you the things that we tell you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's so true. You know, we'll be on, by the way, things going on this week. We'll be on with Chris Hart and the American Adversaries on The Answer Orlando at 5:30 Eastern on Wednesday night to give an update from the pastors conference and to give an update on Watchman Action and everything that's going on. Being vigilant. So, Juliana, you shared something this weekend, maybe? It was 2 years ago when Silicon Valley Bank, when the whole crisis happened, and you shared the interviews that we did that following week. That was probably one of the busiest weeks in the history of our business. Yeah. It was interesting to go back and look. And if you go to watchmanaction.org, if you look for our Rip from the Headlines newsletter, okay, so both Rip from the Headlines, where we take the news and we break it down, and wearethewatchmen.org, where we equip the church to engage the culture, connect the dots between current events and scripture. Okay. With Rip from the Headlines, with both publications, we designed them to be search engines.
Correct.
We wanted to take the body of our work. When we told you something was going to be a thing, we wanted to date it, document it, make sure there was a link to it. You could go now. If you go now and search for banking crisis at SherlockExposes.com, Sherlock spelled without a K, you will find these interviews, and I will critique our work, but I actually went back and looked at the things we said were going to happen and ultimately where we would be, right? From October of 2022, where you sit today, and I'm not just saying this to say it, if you actually go back and look at the things that we shared, we told people they would be at this point at this time. Economically, geopolitically, all of these things lined up. And when people hear us, I always joke, we were watching The Matrix last night before we went to bed. I feel like the Oracle from The Matrix. It's like every time I see you, it's like I got it. And I'm sorry for that, right? But in a way,
you know what? It's not about negative, positive, left, right. It's about facts.
Yeah.
Right. That's all we give to people is just, I'm showing you what the facts are. You come to the conclusion.
Well, and one of the core fundamentals of Sherlock as a market research and behavioral marketing business and Watchman Action, even any of our training that we do, it's adjacent to that, is we work to help people understand what's going on around them and that the chaos you see is actually tremendous opportunity.
That's right.
So Economics and Life 101.
So we use the publications to be able to go, here's what's going on.
Right.
And then we use Watchman Action to do the whole, here's the process for you to figure out how you want to respond to what's going on.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
It's so funny because Father has us do things. And I'm like, I asked Father 11 years ago, and I'm like, can you show me like what's happening? maybe it was 10 years ago. Show me what's going on. And he was like, basically said, like, I can't show you because things haven't developed yet.
Right.
Like, there are things that need to come into being before I can show you exactly what you're going to do. But then to come down to, okay, Father, you're telling us, go show my people what's happening, and then go show my people how to fix what's happening, which all goes back to taking territory until he comes back.
Yeah. And when you understand just like the basic fundamentals of anything, right? Success or wealth takes place within chaos, right? What's happening around you right now is a massive transfer of wealth.
Yep.
Just speaking to the business side, but there's also a spiritual component to this. These are the times where wealth is transferred or massive wealth is accumulated. It's not when things are good. Okay. If you take nothing else away from tonight, from the business side of things, if you're a fan of Warren Buffett, if you simply follow what he's doing, he will tell you where the puck is going.
Right.
The fact that he wants to get out of the real estate business, and I'm going to stop after this, I promise, and that he is sitting on a record amount of cash should tell you what he sees coming. He's loading up to get great deals on a bunch of stuff when you freak out and you sell it. But see, this is a life lesson. It's also a spiritual lesson.
So we see the patterns of what's happening.
Sure.
So we're like, here are the gold mines, here are the
land mines. That's that's a prevailing theme within the business. When we talk to a client or a potential client, we say, look, our primary function is to help you see where the gold mines are and the land mines are. Doesn't matter what you do, right? We got to get that part right first. If we can't help you there, then we probably can't help you, period.
Yep.
And that's okay. But if we can help you to understand those things, irregardless of what you do, we can come up with a solution for you where you're on the winning side of it.
So I like to say we don't come up with the winning solution. We help them to design what the winning solution is, right? Because everything that we've done is, here's the backbone so that you can think through.
Right.
So that you can come to the conclusion that's appropriate and, what you need to have done. We don't have the answers, right? We can see what's true and be like, here's what's true, right? And then we can say, here's how we think that you need to think through to come to some conclusions. Because I always say, right, life is about like a mathematical equation, 2x squared, 3yq plus 15 parentheses, 26 minus x squared, like equals what? If you don't know all the components and you don't know what X and Y is and how they all relate to each other, like, you're wrong. Your conclusion is wrong. So we're saying, here are the facts, right? And then Mr. So-and-so, you want to be able to solve what XYZ solution. Great. Here's how you think through to be able to get that to that end goal.
Right.
That answer of what you need to do. You never know what the answer is. But if you have the wrong equation, it'll always be wrong. If you have the right equation, then you can figure out what you need to do. And that's what we do.
That's what we do. And that works across the board. That will work in your business life as well as your spiritual life.
Exactly.
Because the clues are there. All the information's in the book, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. What else is going on in the world?
Man, I mean, so as best I can tell geopolitically, and let me just, as we're talking, I'll go through some of this. No, we don't have to.
No, just tell me what's going on. Yeah, just give me a rundown. Give me headlines and stuff like that.
So the JFK files are supposed to be released. Yep.
He was saying that today?
He was saying that today. Yes, he was.
What's that all about?
Who knows? The third man on the grassy knoll? Or, I mean, what are we going to get? Who knows?
Do you think the truth is going to come out? Okay, so we know the Epstein files did not come out. And truth did not happen. So what's going to happen now?
All right. So you want the inside the head of researchers and what happens behind the scenes. Ain't none of that bupkis coming out in a meaningful way. And because there are too many people and too many things connected to it. I think what we get with JFK is that there was probably somebody else involved, but you're going to probably get a whole bunch of redacted. It's like if you were to do the thing with RFK, right? I'm sure RFK Jr. knows what happened to his dad, but how much of that's going to get out, because how many people who are still alive or in some way connected.
So I think that you'll get more out of that file than you did with the Epstein, because there's more people relevant today that's around.
Okay, so can I give you just a quick correlation as to why I don't believe that people are going to get a full disclosure?
They're not going to get a full disclosure. You can give me your dissertation if you want. They're not going to get the full disclosure, but they're going to get more than they got with the Epstein.
Yeah. So I heard an interesting story this morning. Donald Rumsfeld was the national security advisor at 9/11. So you recall, Donald Rumsfeld was a guy that said trillions of dollars were missing on September 10th, and they didn't know where they were, and the next day planes hit. Interesting correlation about Donald Rumsfeld. Aspartame is in most things now. It's a substitute for sugar that's actually a poison, right? So you shouldn't be drinking Diet Coke and stuff like that. And the correlation was that Donald Trump and Elon Musk drink this stuff like it's going out of style. They're basically crackheads. Right? Anybody that drinks that stuff is a crackhead, and it makes you hungry. It's bad for you, right? Aspartame is produced when E. coli takes a dump.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Context, okay?
I don't know if I needed to know that.
For years, food manufacturers could not get aspartame approved by the government until Donald Rumsfeld became the CEO of the company that produced aspartame. And then all of a sudden it got through. This is the same Donald Rumsfeld who was a national security advisor around 9/11. The reason I shared that is that there is something that should be publicly, and by the way, this is publicly out there. This is not like this isn't known. But how come it hasn't been dealt with? Therein lies your challenge.
So people go into politics so they can go and advocate for what it is that they want. And because all the bad people are like, oh, I want like an aspartame up there, so I'm going to go and do these things so that I can advocate for these things. And it's like, really? Like at this point, I mean, the Bible tells us that, you know, the worldly governors of this world,
Ephesians 6:12.
Okay, of the Geneva Bible.
Yes.
You can't go by the King James Bible. It has to be the Geneva Bible, because it's only the Geneva Bible that will tell you that Father told us the earthly kings, right, the earthly rulers, the governors of this world are bad. But positive people, people that really want to see a change, aren't going into politics the way that they should. So we've got these rulers and governors, right, ruling over us and doing this kind of thing, or the USAID, you know, they're doing things to us, against us, they're hurting us, and yet we're sitting here going, rah, 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 politics, I'm going to go vote for this guy versus that guy. And I'm just sitting here going, Father told us they're all evil.
So, Juliana, we actually have a three-pronged problem, and I will go quickly, I promise.
Go ahead.
One, in many ways, we exist in a caste system.
Yeah, we do.
In the US, if you're not familiar, in India, they live in a caste system. If you are poor, you're not going to get up a level, right? There are different levels of people. We have one of those in the United States. Most people don't realize it.
You can raise up in the levels, but what it takes to do that.
Right. You're not going to be the person you started as if you're going to raise up in those levels, because there are certain things that you must do in order to get into those clubs. So you have that challenge, and then you have the tribalism challenge. So this goes back to calling balls and strikes.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not a fan of Ronald Reagan, but there was some suspect stuff. And for years, people refused to call balls and strikes. Now some of this stuff is coming out, right? And it's like, well, it only took you.
Okay, so wait, so they're doing that today.
Yeah.
For Trump. They're not calling balls and strikes.
This is what I'm getting to. So
okay.
This tribalism then becomes detrimental to you. And this gets to the Trump thing. And this is something that Bill Federer always shares. If you've not seen Bill Federer's work, please go and look at his work on silence equals consent and tacit approval.
Yep.
When you let someone like Donald Rumsfeld, and in turn the US government, get away with aspartame, or you allow President Trump to get away with behavior that is not in line with what you agreed with.
Like no hide laws.
Right. And your answer is the juice is worth the squeeze. No. Your tacit approval,
That.
your silence,
That.
or your cheering agreement.
That.
I know you and Amanya talked about the Alien Acts of 1798 on Chopping It Up.
People are upset over the plane flying out and he can't enact that and who's really on the plane. I'm just sitting here going,
look, okay, so
it's
fine.
a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope.
That's what it comes down to.
It is a slippery slope. And this
Yep.
this goes to leg 3 of this. And that's the slippery slope. It feels good for you for now.
The propaganda, like we could swallow the propaganda, but is that the truth? That's not the truth. That's just the propaganda.
Here comes the tacit approval.
Go ahead.
The Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798. John Adams gets a bad rap. They say he signed it. It's his fault. No. And this is actually theatrically played out. Of all people, when Tom Hanks did the John Adams miniseries, he accurately depicted what is understood about John Adams at that time. John Adams did not want to sign that act because he knew what it meant. Beyond those who were trying to rally support for the French Revolution, who were not US citizens, he knew that if it was used broadly, that you could kill free speech. So here we are again. And when I first heard this last week, my first response was, oh no. No, there is a reason that John Adams did not want to sign that bill.
It's the backing of people so blindly, where they would be like, it's okay. But we're sitting here as journalists going, no, it's not. Because we could be the ones on the plane.
So let us give you some context, just quickly, just so you understand. On the surface, this sounds like a great thing. And sure, he can deport people, but you have to understand.
Deport anybody.
Yeah, you have to understand that anyone who is perceived to be in dissent against President Trump, the administration, or the United States is subject to basically a suspension of habeas corpus.
So it says that they can take the people out of the country or to Guantanamo Bay.
Right. So if
Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah. So if you took issue with the J6ers or the pro-lifers being thrown in a hole with no due process, you're basically cheering for the same thing, and you don't quite realize it because you haven't connected the dots yet, because what you see are gang members and other illegals who should not be here being deported.
And that's what they say.
Yes.
Is that who's really being deported? Like I'm looking at, all the different back channels and they're like, who's really being deported? Is it the gang members? We don't really know who's being deported.
So if
they're saying that sounds really good.
Right. So if you saw what's the movie? Remember the 5th of November.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
The thing you don't want is to get black bagged. Like you don't want to live in a world where they just disappear you. And the reality is we do this stuff with you guys. I mean, we call balls and strikes, right?
We put our necks out there.
Yeah. If our chances of getting swatted are decent. Not that I want that to happen, but those chances there. But if we decide, like we've just spoken critically of President Trump in this decision, and currently that is our right to do so.
So is it critically or is it honestly?
Well, I mean, it is both. It's both, actually.
Okay, so for me, it's we need to be calling that which it is. And stop dealing with this is propaganda, right? And we're just gonna go, well, he's just saying it's just for the gang members.
That's the way it always starts.
That's it's a slippery slope. So we need to be telling our brothers and sisters going, listen, that's great that he wants to say that's all for gang members. But you know what? On the target list is us.
The correlation. Income tax was only meant for rich people.
I know.
Now you're 100 years in, 100 plus years in. Guess what? Are you rich?
No.
Maybe you are. Congratulations. But if you're not, how's that working for you? The fact that got through so many layers and was okay without guardrails around it is scary. And I'm going to ask people a very serious question. And I want you to sit with this. You can put it in the chat. I don't know if anybody wants to chat tonight. It's open lines, right? But I want you to ask yourself a very serious question. Do you want a king? Do you want a monarchy?
Dang.
or do you desire a constitutional republic?
We don't have that.
And I only ask, we've talked to Ann Vandersteel about this. We talked about where the United States is and where it was and how it is a corporation. But here we are, where many people got sold a bill of goods that they were good with until.
I don't think people really understand what's going on. For example, everything that you said, and then add to that the Noahide laws.
Right.
Every single Christian should be on guard right now, because we have the heads of the Jewish arena that are like, there are 6.5 million people that are worshiping idols. That includes all the Christians and Nazarenes, all the Buddhists, anybody who does not worship who the Jews say they should be worshiping, is their necks are on the block. And I'm just sitting here going, but we've got all of the Trump people supporting what he's doing. And are you not aware of the Noahide laws and what that means?
Most people aren't. They have no idea what's happening. And
so they're just blindly following what's going on with the law of 17 whatever. And now
let me go back to the second leg. The tribalism issue is back.
I get nauseous thinking about this.
The tribalism issue, and we saw some of this. We were at a meeting on Friday, and I'm not going to go into details of where or who, but I want to cite this because it's really important. Tribalism will get you in all sorts of trouble, and it feels good. You know, for the first time in my life that I did not watch the Super Bowl this year.
Right.
Okay, and there's a reason for that. I'm really kind of done with the NFL. Right. The level of foolishness is beyond. It's not even a game.
Chicanery.
It's chicanery. But the tribalism became very evident to me. Tribalism, in these senses, is extremely dangerous. It makes you feel good, but in that feeling good, you lose all sense of critical thinking. That's a cult. Okay? Many people were in the Kamala cult or the Joe Biden cult or whatever. It's still a cult.
But it's okay to be in the Trump cult? I mean...
Okay, I don't think they're ready for that. Are they? Are they? Maybe they are. Okay.
I think that people need to have a awakening to what the facts are, not what the feelings are, not what the propaganda says, not the, oh, we're in this moment in time and kumbaya and we can relax now because everything's okay. I'm just sitting here going,
so many people did that, right? And so
are doing that.
And that was reflected in the thing we were at Friday. And they were saying things, and I'm like, you just figuring that out now? You just figuring out that people grift on nonprofits? Like, what planet have you been on for the last 100 years?
Right? Well, we were talking to one of the nonprofits. I won't name the person. And they said that their support went from 200,000 people down to 50,000 people when Trump got in. Mm-hmm. And he's like, where did everybody go? Do they think that because Trump got in, then all of a sudden we don't have to like engage?
And they're doing great work, by the way. I mean, they're doing like hardcore.
Correct. Hardcore. But the whole drop off was right after Trump got in. Like, you just have to say, are people just sitting back and thinking that the government is going to take over and going to be able to do things and fix things? They're the ones who messed things up to begin with.
If you are not willing to call balls and strikes and speak out critically, truthfully, respectfully, but truthfully, when things are wrong in your tribe, then your desire is to be ruled by a king that's not the King of Kings.
Grab your Geneva Bible, 1 Samuel 8.
Big
1 Samuel 8.
Right.
Read 1 Samuel 8 and just read all of it. And Father was like, I'm going to give you your king, and this is what's going to happen to you. And it's just a couple pages of it sucks. It's really bad. Like, whoever can think that having a king, people note the fact that there were 400 years where we were submitted to Father, and we didn't need to have rules. We didn't need to have laws, right? Because we were doing what we needed to do as his children. And we were following what Father said was supposed to be done. And it got to the point where people stopped caring And they were like, okay, so, we're not doing what we need to do. We're not following Father. We're not following the 10 Commandments or whatever. So now give us a king. And it's like, I want to go back to we're all doing what our Bible says that we need to be doing and following that scripturally and living our lives with no government interceding with our lives. Father should be the ultimate rule about what's happening with us.
But here's the contrast. He gave us everything we needed to do it properly, yet because of tribalism, tacit approval, silence equals consent, all of these things, we are back where we were before.
We're so stupid. Like as a people, I just want to go,
yeah.
How dumb do you need to be?
Yeah, because we don't follow. And look, some people are going to say to us, look, you guys know I'm not Christian. I watch your stuff. I enjoy you, but I'm not like that. And then, okay, fine, whatever. But a little leaven, G. Craig Lewis down in Houston talks about this. He did an entire sermon series on a little bit of leaven, just like a little bit of poison, ruins the whole thing. If I gave you a gallon of water and there's a drop of poison in it, guess who's going to die?
Everybody.
That'd be everybody who drank it. It just a little bit of leaven is going to ruin everything, right? A little leaven in the bread ruins bread. So you have to take that into consideration. I would encourage people to be hyper vigilant because you're a watchman. Okay, now you're in. Sorry, if you're watching this, you're a watchman. Too late. Can't go back. Right? No take backs. You have to be hyper vigilant on the things that matter to the kingdom and your family and your relationships. And when someone is out of line, I don't care who it is.
Gotta call them out.
You gotta call them out. Because if you don't, your silence equals consent. That is how we end up with the Alien Acts of 1798 without any boundaries. Just going. It may just go with this and that's it, and then it fades away. Potentially. Here's the danger. There is no limit. And the next day, President Trump made the innuendo that his enemy should be in prison. Now, maybe rightly so.
No.
But you can't. If someone has committed a crime, then okay. But you can't do that in that context after you've basically authorized yourself to do it. That's a monarchy. That's a dictatorship. That's not a constitutional republic.
And here's what's interesting is that the Democrats are all screaming and the Republicans are like, you're stupid, but yet we are 100%. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm not a Republican. I am 100%. We have a constitutional republic. That's what I believe in 150%. I want to bring the Whigs back, right? Because they had it right. Okay. But we sound more like Democrats at this moment, where they're complaining about going, Mayday. Do you not see what's happening here?
There are voices of dissension on all sides that are like, hey, this ain't right. Which, by the way, just as an aside, this isn't a Democrat or Republican thing.
It's not.
If you are a believer in a constitutional republic, and it is interesting that as we come up on 250 years of existence since the Declaration of Independence, that'll be next year, by the way, and we have a new book coming out on that. So if that is you, then you understand what is at stake and what your responsibility is. Here's a challenge, Juliana. I believe that people love the idea of it.
Of what?
Of a constitutional republic, and I'm free, and I have a voice, and all of these things, and I'm self-governed, and right.
But it takes effort to do all of that.
They're okay with the idea, but not the practice.
Well, the practice, which requires the effort to create that.
Yeah, people don't want to do that.
Let's go back to Trump's standing in between we the people and they the globalists.
Yeah.
Okay. And unless people stand up and start advocating for what it is that they want to have happen here in the United States, I promise all of y'all that the globalists are advocating, and they're advocating with big, big money.
They sure are. I mean,
we live in a 15-minute city, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, here in Altamont Springs, Florida.
Yeah. And by the way, if you haven't figured this out yet, you are in a controlled economic demolition.
Thank you for bringing that up, guy.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could have just had you jumped off a 20-story building and went splat, or you could have had this more controlled demolition where you probably get through it with some bumps and bruises, and it's going to be rough for a while, but at the end you get to dig yourself out of the rubble and try to figure it out.
Think you're being really positive about it. I don't know.
Wow, that was positive.
No, well, no, I think that there's a possibility that it's going to really, really suck for a lot of people.
Oh, it's going to suck.
Okay, so for everybody's like, oh, Trump is fixing the economy. No, Trump is dismantling the economy. Like he's taking us back down to ground zero. We're at 250 years of, our country. And, we understand that, our currency is not backed by gold. We understand that everything has been just a show. And everything's been like a lie, right? So now he's, destroying what's happening behind the scenes. Musk is there going, look at all this waste and this fraud. Like everybody's all like, oh my God. But that's Trump's business. His business is, how do I now take the United States of America? He's done this before, right? Mm-hmm. Bring it down and cut it down to where it needs to be, because it needs to be back to where it needs to be at the basic level. But what is that basic level? Is it what we want to have happen? Is it a Bitcoin situation? Or is it the globalist version and it's an XRP situation?
Or a central bank digital
currency. Or
currencies.
A central bank digital currency. So do we have democratized and everything is about, small communities and, we have all of our freedoms because everything's democratized and nothing is centrally and controlled? Or do we have the XRP, the CBDC, and everything is controlled and you can't go anywhere or do anything unless you're allowed to?
Going back and looking at what we talked about, we laid out the chessboard on how they get you boxed into a CBDC. And we did it so many times in such a short period that it literally was one of those where you could just recite it in your sleep. And, we kind of said, here you are. Now, there are economists on all sides. Edward Dowd is a respected economist. His belief is that we are in a recession. We will go into a depression, but it'll be rough, but not as rough maybe. And then Kirk Elliott is like, well, look, this has to happen. You got to get the sickness out. And so it's going to be what it is. And yeah, people can do this. And then everybody's trying to sell you their stuff. We're not really trying to do that. We're trying to call balls and strikes. So it being rough is a very personal thing, right?
Well, it's a matter of where are your chips?
Yeah.
There are some people that their chips are where they need to be and they're going to make a lot of money.
Ton of money.
And then there are people that have their chips in the wrong places and they're going to lose really big. So, for example, if Trump reevaluates gold, who's going to win and who's going to lose? Yeah, you say.
So there's been discussion about a revaluing of gold. We got in an argument with somebody Friday about this. I won't go down that road, but if Trump were to revalue gold, and this discussion has been happening, by the way, which is why you see a bunch of gold coming back into the U.S. and they're supposed to audit it. Maybe someday they'll get into Fort Knox. That was said, and then it wasn't. But most of the gold's in the New York Fed anyway. So, what happens? Well, he's the discussion, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, so let me be clear. The discussion has been around a revaluing of gold and then in some way tying the dollar to gold. Now, BRICS has talked about this, that they were going to have their currency tied, I think, at like 40%, which, okay, fine, I get it, right? If Trump were to revalue gold, it could theoretically go to $8, $10, $12, $20,000 an ounce overnight with a repricing. That would wipe most people's assets out, okay? So you'd be wiped out, and what they would try to do is come back and say, well, look, this is why we have a digital stable coin. Pick your poison. Look, we're going to give you 1 for 1 on everything you would have lost. You're just going to get this digital currency. That's a pretty bad way to go, but it's a simple one, right? Because then all of the issues, all of the debt, everything else just goes away. And a lot of people think we're crazy, including the person we were talking to Friday night. They said, well, there's no way. They've never repriced gold. And I'm like,
yes, they did.
Sir.
Surprise.
Sir, you should ask Franklin Delano Roosevelt about repricing gold, because he did it after he confiscated it. And it saved the United States coming out of the Depression. People are like, yeah, except for that part where a lot of people lost all their wealth, right? Because he took it all and then he repriced it.
So when you say reprice it, right? They inflated everything in our world at the moment.
Yeah.
So they want to take the price of gold and connect it to the inflation for having taken us off the gold. So I heard that if we would have evaluated gold and it having gone up in value, that it would have stepped pace with what our increase. Is that correct or no? Like if we were to reevaluate it now, they were talking about like a suit. A suit at that point was like one piece of gold, and now like the suit is worth like X amount of pieces of gold. And if they would have reevaluated the gold, the 1 shekel of gold would be the same price of one really good suit.
That's still the case today.
That's still the case.
Yeah, you could get a really, really good suit for an ounce of gold.
So another
100 years ago, you could have gotten a really good suit for an ounce of gold.
So okay. So if that's true, then they've suppressed the price of gold.
Well, they've suppressed the price of gold and silver, and there are a lot of plays. Like that's actually, we should do a separate show on that because we did that a couple of years ago, and we were spot on. We should come back around and do it again. You have to take the market fundamentals that you've been indoctrinated in, step back from them, look at them critically, call balls and strikes, and understand that sometimes things aren't all that complicated. If you are in a situation that you fiscally can't get out of, your solution in the US is bankruptcy. You just say, I don't have it. And they say, okay, well, let's suck up what you do have, and then in 7 years, we'll let you start with a clean slate. That's what happens. The US will never be able to repay the debt that it owes. And for people who tell us, because we hear this all the time from people who are stuck in the matrix, well, come on, we talking about they could just print more money until the full faith and credit of the United States is no longer enough, which is why you see the Secretary of State of the United States talking about a multipolar world.
Well, that's why you've got BRICS.
Yeah.
Right. Because BRICS was like, I'm calling you out. I'm like, no, the dollar's not worth anything. So we're going to do the BRICS, and we're going to have our own currency, and we're going to have our own unity, and we don't need the SWIFT, and go scratch the Federal Reserve. And
they did that, right? Because SWIFT the US could block anybody that they deemed an enemy.
They did that to the Russians.
Right. And Putin worked around it. It was brilliant. Anyway.
I want to change the subject. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
We're not here to have a whole, like, we're going to teach people a whole bunch of stuff. I really just want to we're having a conversation about close of business and what do we find out? What do we learn? What's going on in our lives and stuff like that? Like, we go way too deep and like teaching people stuff where I'm like, no, look, like, this is not the time to be doing it. So what else do we need to talk about? Because if we get like literally like, RC, we're getting stuck on a topic, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm getting depressed because I don't want to talk about the topic. It's not about the topic. It's about all the different topics. We are the topic. It's like, close the business. Here's what we learned today. Here's what's going on in our world, right? Not a deep dive into this is really messed up. And we need to know all about this because we've been talking about this. So great. We want you to know all that stuff. But now is not the time. Like, I'm sitting there going, I'm having Ajna. I don't have this conversation anymore.
So then let's talk about the good news. Right, because
are you on the same topic? Because if you're on the same topic, I want off.
No, I'm saying let's talk about the good news. Okay. There's always good news.
What's the good
news?
The
kingdom is good news.
Of course.
Right, the word is good news. The Bible's good news.
What else is going on in the world?
Seeing people cut through the muck and work together is amazing. There's been a revival of a more classic way of living and doing.
So I really appreciate the younger generation that's been pushing what you just said.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones that are going, y'all are messed up. I can't believe you're giving us this America. Like, this is not what we want to have happen. There's so many women out there that are going, I am so mad at the fact that I have to go out there and earn a paycheck to be able to sustain a household. Meanwhile, P.S., we don't even have kids. Like, you know, it's not fair. It's not fair because when I was being raised, my grandmother got to stay home and be there for us, which is the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And then my mom, she wasn't able to. So thank goodness I had my grandmother. But now we're at the point with my generation where we're having to work and my son is having to work. So now we're trying to figure out how to, take care of the children. like they've like been sucking the money out of the family so much so that we can't even like, even as a family unit coming together, we can't sustain ourselves.
Generations were sold a bill of goods. We're Xers, so we got to see we can fix anything. Like that's our solution. We'll figure it out. That's been our whole. That's our thing, right? And so it is nice to see the younger generations figuring out what our grandparents and great grandparents understood, that the family unit is everything. And we got sold a bill of goods that being solo and not having those things was okay and empowering. And we're kind of seeing that that's not the case.
Literally, my son was like, they lied to us. They told us that we should leave and have our own place and do our own thing and have our own family. And he's like, that was a lie. Like now I understand, he would say to me, now I understand why, you had like a 3-family generational house. Like, my grandparents bought a house. It was 3 apartments, 4 floors, my mother, her sister, and then my grandmother was over here. And then when my aunt moved out, I moved in. So with my mom, me, my kids, and my grandmother, like it was beautiful. Like my children ran upstairs to go see my mom. They ran downstairs to go see their great grandmother, and they hung out. Like they had the whole house. They had people who loved on them and fed them and pat them on the head and be like, I love you, kid. And now it's like, no, mom and dad are going to struggle and they're going to worry and they don't have extra aunts to help. And the kids don't have extra people to be able to go to alleviate the pressure and whatnot. Like that's the lie.
Yeah. And so rubber meets the road. Yeah. And generations are saying enough. Right? How do we get back to that sense of family and stability, right? What's going to happen now, right? Because you got those bill of goods, be you, do all these things. And then there you are, and there's nothing else.
So they broke down the community, then they broke down the family, and then they broke it down even more. And then it's like, so they want you solo and isolated, just like in the wild.
Yep.
The lions are out there and they're going after the gazelle, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, let me just isolate this one person, this one gazelle, and then all the lions can go ahead and go.
Right. So we as Father's creation, were not meant to be alone. We're meant to be in community.
Correct.
Right. And it's funny because we watch animal shows all the time, right? They're great. And there's a lesson in there because what happens? Predators isolate the weakest, the slowest, the oldest.
Yep.
Right? They isolate you. And once they isolate you, then they strike. And this is no different. So what's happened now is people have been isolated. And you see it in mental health drugs and all these things, the stuff going through the roof. People are depressed and all of these things. The shining light for me, though, is to watch the generations after us. And we're really like, we bridge the gap. Yeah, we bridge the gap between the two. To see young folks take on traditional roles and make these statements, that's what they're going to do because that's what we're supposed to do.
Well, I think that society's gotten so sick that they're like, hold on a second, this is so demonic. Propaganda wants you to believe that, we're really leaning towards that cultural shift of the LGBTQ and, just changing the family dynamics. Like the younger guys are going, no. And we're pushing back. No. Like, I'm so sick of hearing it. Like, I know that myself personally and what I've been through, okay, and the abuse I call it cultural abuse because the things that I went through, like, for example, walking down the avenue, just going to the store so I can go pick up some groceries, and men just speaking like, oh, mama, ooh, and just saying things in my ear, like cultural abuse that I went through. And I'm just sitting there going, why? It's gotten so much worse, but why do we condone and allow by tacit, acceptance that this is what the culture is supposed to look like? This is not what the culture is supposed to look like. So we're sitting here going, as Gen Xers, looking at the younger generations going, y'all stand up. And we, the Gen Xers, are going to stand up behind you because we were bullied in essence, right? Because the generation before us was like, submit. This is what it's going to look like. Well, they were sucking the lifeblood out of us, right? And we're sitting there going, whoa, you're sucking the lifeblood out of my kids. Oh, wait a minute, you're sucking the lifeblood out of my grandkids. Hold on a second. What the heck is going on around us? So I like totally applaud the younger generation that are standing up going, this is not what we want. We want to go back to the basic fundamentals of what America was about, right? The government was for ours, being able to have our self and be able to have a family, be able to have our church, be able to have our community, be able to do for ourselves and our sovereignty. And we have lost that.
It's really going to bake a lot of people's noodle.
What?
Is when they figure out how intricate something like population control actually has been. And every time that you support a cause like an LGBTQIA, whatever, now you see the suicide squads coming out because the mental illness that comes from the drugs and everything is there. But people are going to figure out at some point that it's like, I can't have kids anymore. I can't have a family. I'm not normal. Well, now they've reduced the gene pool.
Or just sitting here and thinking about all the children that they chemically castrate.
Right.
I just can't believe that is legal, that you can take a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, whatever, a child, and make it so that they can never sexually perform. What, like what has happened to our society that we are not thinking about it, that we've got very few doctors standing up because it's all about money?
Hey, people used to throw their babies to Molech in the fire.
Oh,
no different, just modern.
That just made me so sick to my stomach.
But here's the thing, right? So we call it out because we have to call it out. You should be cheering on young families, okay, and young people who desire to get married, have a family. You should be cheering for them.
Yeah.
Right. It may be a little tough on them. Maybe they got some young kids and they're in the grocery store and maybe it's a little tough for you to get through the line or whatever, or, you're waiting on something or whatever. Take that, call that joy and go tell them how amazing that is and support them because they can certainly use it.
Right.
And they're getting it right. And that's it. So there is always a silver lining. Right. The Father always shows his hand in this stuff. So that's the good news.
Excellent.
Yes.
I'm still very depressed. Like, I just want to sit here and go, I am done. I want to sign off because I'm I'm just like, this is supposed to be my birthday. And I'm sitting here going, I can't believe we even had this conversation. Like, to be totally honest with you, like, I'm sitting here going, why did we do this? Like, we went live to be able to go, we love y'all. And we want to be able to talk to y'all. But it's depressing, the shit that we got to talk about.
I take solace and joy in the book of Ezekiel, in particular Ezekiel 33, in that it is our watch to call it and not to be consumed by it, but to be watchmen and to show people that the Father's hand is there. He's reaching his people.
I want you to tell me how we're not supposed to be consumed about it when it's 9:00 at night on my birthday. We still need to pack for tomorrow. We're going out of town. How are we not consumed by it? Because as far as I'm concerned, we are consumed by it.
We are watchmen.
And we don't have a choice.
We are watchmen, and the promise is there. And the promise is there. And I call it joy. The promise is there.
Oh.
Guys, we do love you.
Is there anything else before we hang out?
No, we're good.
There's nothing else that happened today as where I was like with the 2-year-old?
No, nothing else that I can.
No.
Yeah.
All right, y'all.
Guys, we do love you. We do love you. Ezekiel 33:6 and 33:8 are important. All the promises of the word, of the Father's word, are there and they're important. And now that you know, it's time to get to work. All right, guys, we love you. We'll see you soon. Bye, y'all.
We'll see you Wednesday?
Yeah, probably
sure. Wednesday
for sure. We'll be live from Gainesville. All right. Bye, y'all. Good night.